Uncle Dan.
Hello!
Is that the Queen?
Hello!
Thank you.
As
That's
we'll
my impression of
see
the Queen.
in the fullness of this episode, not everything that Israel tells you should be taken with a full, or with less than a grain of salt. As we discussed recently in an episode, the Israeli, what was his position?
The Israeli space program.
The Israeli space program, which is
a thing, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah. Good for them.
Said he was in communication or had been in communication with a alien civilization.
It's nice for them to have a program where they're not shooting rockets at their direct neighbors.
I was about to say, like, does a rocket have to go into orbit to land 15 miles away? But
yeah.
Ooh. But yeah, so you know.
So, Uncle Mark, what do you have to say about that?
Wow, that just petered right out. I got lost transmission on you there, Doug. So
I'm sorry.
I have this really strange memory that has haunted me for decades, and I don't know if maybe I've told you this, Doug, but I don't know if I've told you, Dan. In like 1994 or 5, I was working on a movie in southern Utah.
You have told me that. You have told me this.
Okay, so I needed some random thing. So I called around and I found some guy out by Colorado City that had it, right? And so I drove, it was phone book days, so I drove that lonely road from Fredonia, Arizona to the Pipe Springs area, if you've ever been out there, down by Colorado City, just north of the Grand Canyon. It is a pretty lonely spot. Have you guys been there?
Oh, I've been there many times. It's very lonely.
I haven't been there, but I want to now. You're really selling it.
It's beautiful, but it is rugged. So it's just a bunch of weird little clusters of houses and trailers here and there in the blazing heat of the Red Rock Desert. And I couldn't find the place that I was trying to get to. The addresses don't make sense, and half the roads don't have signs, and half the houses don't have numbers because they've either fallen off or evaporated in the sun.
Or the road signs are just riddled with bullet holes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I decided to pull over at the least The Hills Have Eyes sort of trailer, which was still very The Hills Have Eyes. And it was kind of a wreck from the 50s or 60s, and a classic old trailer, and the porch was super creaky. So I go up and I knocked on the door, and a man I did not expect answered it. Now, I'm not trying to be ableist here, but the oddness of what happened next will lend to the whole shebang here in a sec. When the door opened, a small, roundish man answered, probably in his mid-60s. He was very bald, except for one tuft of totally white hair on top of his head like Bert. And he was so beyond pale. His skin was seriously on the verge of being transparent. It wasn't like albinism, right? His condition was like nothing I'd ever seen before or since. And he had the biggest eyes I've ever seen, for real. I'm not making any of this up. He had these huge blue eyes, but they were super bloodshot and impossibly watery. I don't remember him blinking. And he was doing that thing with his hands that cartoonists use to convey extreme nervousness, where you kind of like have your hands in a praying position, but you're bouncing them back and forth off each other quickly, like, And so I asked if he knew where the address I needed was, and in a very heavy accent, he said he did not, because he had just moved there from Germany yesterday. Now, this area is all rednecks and polygamists, like Clive and Bundy types.
Right.
So to see this very soft, very fragile, very foreign man appear before me was a bit of a shock. So this is before we had cell phones, so I asked if I could use his phone to call the place. And when he withdrew into the darkness, he kind of gestured towards the little kitchen where the phone was. So I go inside, and as my eyes adjust, it's really dark. I see he has one kind of like dining chair and one side table. That was all the furniture in this place.
Oh, sure. That's all you need.
That's all you need. He had what he needed. Well, he just came from Germany, pre-packed light. And on the side table was this big old radio playing some really staticky AM talk radio station. I couldn't make out what it was saying. As I reached for the phone on the counter, I noticed there were 10 or 12 framed pictures on the wall, all the same size. They all looked like they were by the same artist. And they each featured a flying saucer accompanied by a celestial being of some kind, like an angel, or just straight up Jesus. So You know those moments in your life when you consciously take a mental picture? This was definitely one of those moments. So I made my call and I figured out where to go. The whole time he stood behind his chair at the far end of the room, nervously tapping his fingers together. And I to be polite, I made apologies for bothering him and thanked him in German and got out. He said nothing the rest of the time, just watched me with his wide eyes from a safe distance. So why?
Because you were obviously from the federal government trying to trick him.
Yeah, with my amazing ponytail and my goatee.
Or you failed to notice the sign on the porch that said Himmler residence.
So why did I bring up my having wandered into an episode of The X-Files just now? It's partly because my husband and I are currently watching the Heaven's Gate documentary series on HBO Max. Have you guys seen any of those?
No. I did not know that existed.
Yep, it's a thing. So
what's it called?
It's called Heaven's Gate.
Okay.
Now, if
they were very clever with the titling.
Super clever. Now, if you need a refresher on this tragic story, Doug covered it in episode 61, but in short, it was a very bizarre suicide cult that was certain a flying saucer was going to whisk them away to their glory in the 90s. About the same time, I was standing in the living room of either a contactee or a not very well disguised visitor to Earth via Germany just the day before. And like our careful examination of the world of cryptozoology in episode 108, I thought we could have some fun with the wild and woolly, out of this world of UFOs and their place in the religious pantheon. So here goes. The internet claims the first real UFO group or cult in the U.S. was something that became known as the Ashtar Galactic Command, and later the Ministry of Universal Wisdom, first imagined by UFO contactee George Van Tassel around 1953. Though there is a case to be made for Saint Germain and the Church Universal and Triumphant, but let's not start a whole fucking thing between them here. So Van Tassel found himself in possession of a dusty patch of desert at Giant Rock in California. This is going to sound familiar, Dan.
Yeah.
How did he get this land? Well, a weird German man, detect a theme yet, that he met while pumping gas in the desert told him about it, and later blew himself up with dynamite as the police closed in on him in 1942 because he was suspected of being a Nazi spy.
Yep.
Getting land the usual way. Anywho, George set himself up out there and started hosting some kind of meditation retreats. Things were going swimmingly until one night, Ashtar, a guy from Venus, invited him, which I thought women were from Venus, but apparently Ashtar is too, invited him on his ship and kindly showed him how to rejuvenate the human body, which is super cool. Van Tassel soon built a kind of round building called the Integratron, which Dan covered in episode 88. George Van Tassel...
Worst transformer ever.
He has such integrity that he won't transform.
Although I do like the idea of like you go into the Integratron, which just makes sounds at you, and the sounds that it makes are...
No, it's the worst because when it shows up as a transformer of James Comey and you transform it into a transformer of Elliot Ness.
Anyhow, George Van Tassel shuffled off this mortal warp coil in 1978, but you can still go to Giant Rock and get your vibrations on with some singing bowls in the Integratron.
Yes.
But I think the internet might be wrong about the Ashtar Galactic Command, that it maybe isn't the first American interplanetary-based church, is it, guys?
Absolutely not.
Who do we think that honor should go to? Yes, the religion of the square planet or state of our birth, the Mormons.
That's
Hello.
right.
Hey, guys, we've discussed Mormons and what lies beyond the wild blue yonder a few times on the show, most notably with Doug's bit about Kolob in episode 18 and my visit to the Moon and Sun Quakers in episode 132. But Mormonism actually believes in a multiverse where there are uncountable planets inhabited by our spirit cousins, overseen by gods who were once men like us. Well, like you guys, not like me, because no unrepentant gay is getting their own planet, no matter how fabulous it would obviously be. Moving on.
Correct.
The Brotherhood...
Well, I think you hit on why.
Yeah.
You just make all of our planets look bad.
Yeah, your planets will all look like Orem. and mine would be, Fire Island. So... The Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, also known as the Seekers, was founded in 1953 in Michigan. Not unlike the poor dummies of Heaven's Gate, they believed a flying saucer was going to come and collect them on December 21st, 1954. When it did not, they quickly adjusted to Christmas Eve, and when that didn't happen, it all just kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
We talked about these guys very briefly when I did the multiple failed End of the World prophecies a few weeks ago.
Right.
Most interestingly, the group was being studied by Leon Festinger, a social psychologist that had infiltrated the group to study how they would cope when, as he correctly surmised, their ride didn't show up. So he wrote a book about it called When Prophecy Fails, and from that later developed the model of cognitive dissonance to explain the cultists' reaction to the disappointment. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That being kind of the origin of that. There are, of course, the good people of the Aetherius Society, a seemingly benevolent group of saucer people whose founder and prophet, George King, claimed that one night in 1954, a voice told him, "Prepare yourself, you are to become the voice of interplanetary parliament."
Does that mean he passed the audition?
And
Is that what that is?
Here I thought that was Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, God damn it. I was about to make a sequel joke. Fuck.
And then a famous but also unnamed earthly guru walked through the wall of his locked apartment in London and taught him mastery of all forms of yoga and meditation, which, because A follows B, meant he was then able to get telepathic messages from Aetherius, a guy on Venus again. His group still exists and claims their prayers have diverted many earthly disasters,
Oh, thank you.
obviously aided in their spiritual stewardship by an invisible orbiting flying saucer called Satellite Number 3 and the help of something called the Great White Brotherhood, which is a very problematic thing out of Helena Blavatsky's Theosophy movement, which has led to a real thing called esoteric Hitlerism, which we really need to discuss sometime, but I really fucking don't want to.
Do we ever get to know what happened to Satellite 1 and Satellite 2?
That's none of your satellite business, bub.
Shut your
Those
fucking
were
mouth.
the Dave Matthews Band's less popular releases.
They were the instrumentals. So then naturally we all know about Edward Albert Myers. Sorry, everybody. Freie Intergemeinschaft für Grenz- und Geisteswissenschaft und Ufologiestudien. I'm so sorry for murdering that, Annika Brockschmidt. She is or was a big fan of the show. In a language I do speak, that means the free community of interest for the border and spiritual sciences and ufological studies, or FICIBS. This
I'm
innocuous
sorry,
sounding...
was Mineshaft not part of the translation?
Oh, no, Mineshaft is like the Gemeinschaft is like a group of people you work with.
Oh,
So take that.
all right.
This innocuous-sounding group was founded in the 1970s by humble Swissman Edward Albert Meyer, known to his flock simply as Billy. Being just
Why does it tickle me so much? A German speaker named Billy.
Billy
I don't
is a
know.
flying saucer man. Come to Switzerland and see him. Being just such a humble Swissman, Billy claims to be the reincarnation of such historic nobodies as the biblical Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Jesus, and naturally Muhammad.
Wait, he's all of those people?
He's a reincarnation of all of them. So
I love how nobody's a reincarnation of a French peasant. You know what I mean? Like everyone's always
nobody worked in a toll booth in a past life.
exactly.
Right. So, having joined the French Foreign Legion in the 1960s, the sum of all prophets then lost his arm in a bus accident in Turkey before choosing UFO prophet as a vacation. I think it's the little details about these people that really color it in, don't
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, it's what makes it nice.
He claims as a child he met Svath, an aging but kindly extraterrestrial of the Plagiaran race. Through Svath, he also met Space Lady Asket, Svath's granddaughter Sam Jace, and of course Plagiarian officer Ptah. What Billy is perhaps most famous for are his remarkable photographs of the exterior and interior of Plagiaran saucers, or as they call them, beam ships, with permission, of course. In his photos, classic 1950s sci-fi saucers that haunt the placid skies over beautiful pastoral Swiss landscapes. Staggering evidence of visitors indeed, until you consider that his ex-wife said he made them out of the garbage can lids and pie tins they very much appear to be, and that his photographs of the sexy space ladies Asket, and Nira were actually doctored images of members of the girl band The Gold Diggers from an appearance on the Dean Martin Show. So either Billy is a fraud and a joke, or he's proven that the comedy variety Dean Martin Show, canceled in 1974, remains the secret portal for alien infiltration of our blue dot even today. We report, you decide.
I've seen the Dean Martin Show, and I believe that there might be something to it.
We're living through the age of QAnon. That sounds utterly plausible to me.
If what the aliens were bringing to Earth was booze, then yes, that's probably what was going on in the Dean Martin Show. By now, everyone knows that Scientology, also codified in 1953, is a cult that very much believes, like the Mormons, that life on Earth is of intergalactic origins. We, the residents of the galactic backwater Tigiak, are descended from the souls of frozen, hydrogen-bombed, and volcanoed, which is the first time that's ever been used as a verb, people dumped here by galactic horrible boss Xenu like 50 billion trillion years ago, or something like that. Doug and I have both taken a crack at Xenu in episodes 70 and 143. They're both hilarious. But basically, Scientology is fucking evil, and no, Tom Cruise is not a good person because of his staged and leaked rant about COVID precautions, so stop that. And of course...
come on.
He's a bad person. And of course, Uncle Dan covered the weirdly cool and very sex-positive followers of strange French person Claude Verlon, better known as Rail, way back in episode number 2.
Whoa. That's right.
Shout out to episode 2. Raelians believe humanity was created by a highly advanced spacefaring race called the Elohim, and that all the prophets of the olden times were human Elohim hybrids. It's all silly and absurd, but really they just want to fuck and wear silver space outfits like Bootsy Collins cosplayers. I declare them mostly harmless. Now, not many people...
We'll revisit that in my segment. We'll see if we're still on that page.
Oh, okay. You got something coming up from them.
Yeah.
Not many people know that the Nation of Islam, now headed by the cartoonishly awful Louis Farrakhan, has a touch of the flying saucer in it as well.
What?
Yeah.
I love it.
Elijah Muhammad became the second leader of the group after its founder, W.D. Fard Muhammad, vanished without a trace, which is true. But Elijah Muhammad said that the Earth is 76 trillion years old, and that black Americans are descended from the black Asian tribe of Shabazz, who came to Earth from where he does not explain, just in time for it to explode 66 trillion years ago, forming two separate bodies, the Earth and the Moon, and something about God being our leading scientist at the time, but yet failing to get all the new Earth people to speak the same language. This is not, I must confess, the craziest idea in the Nation of Islam, which we need to do a whole segment on soon.
Mark, I'm sorry. I have to take my medicine. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck happened in the last 2 minutes, but I'm fucking completely lost.
You're completely lost?
What the fuck is happening?
I'll get you caught up. And then this will definitely catch you up. And then there is this little gem that started as the Chinese Soul Light Research Association, then became God's Salvation Church when it moved to Bill and Ted's hometown of San Dimas, California, which I refuse to believe is a coincidence. But by the time they moved to Garland, Texas in 1997, because the founder thought it sounded like Godland, they were known as Chen Tao, or just the True Way Cult.
Okay.
A sloppy mix of Taoism, Buddhism, Christianity, and several 1950s B sci-fi movies. It was founded by Hong Ming Chen, who believed that 5 different times since the dinosaurs, God saved humankind in a flying saucer, and that we get 3 souls each, which is cool, and that the solar system is 4.5 trillion years old. What is it with fucking UFO guys and their insane timelines?
Right.
And that the solar system was created in a nuclear war between someone. Mind your own damn saucer business over there, mister. So in 1997, after Chen and his small band of followers bought upscale houses in a neighborhood in Garland, Texas, that they would drive to and from dressed in all white, complete with white cowboy hats in luxury cars, he had a prophecy. He declared that on March 31st of 1998, God would appear on a single TV channel to everyone in North America, regardless of their cable access, and that he would then materialize in the living room of Mr. Chen's house for a meet and greet and light refreshments.
Nice.
If you had the misfortune of watching Wonder Woman 1984, this TV thing was obviously stolen by the producers of that film. Have you guys seen it yet?
Yeah, I watched it
not
last
yet.
night.
Anyway,
I'm too busy having a stroke that I think started about 9 minutes ago.
Stroke of genius. Anyway, with the Memory of Heaven's Gates suicides and the other recent suicides of the Order of the Solar Temple cult, which we discussed in episode 90, fresh in public memory, this got the local authorities worried. So they started closely monitoring the cult in hopes of preventing a big Flavor Aid incident. Well, having failed... That's a good laugh. Oh, fun. Well, having failed in an earlier prediction that he would find a Jesus of the West that he said would look exactly like Abraham Lincoln, you won't be surprised to learn that the prophesied TV broadcast did not interrupt anyone's regular programming on March 31st, 1998. But the Milwaukee Brewers did lose their first National League game to the Atlanta Braves 2-1 on that day. So,
Something.
Yeah.
That's not nothing.
I looked up that day, like what happened on this day, and that was literally it. the fucking baseball game. So Chen's followers were devastated, but luckily not so much that they went full Jonestown. Humiliated, Chen offered to be stoned to death or crucified for his failure, but cooler heads prevailed. The group just kind of fell apart, and as of this recording, Chen's whereabouts are unknown.
Wow, that is not an American cultist, because that if it were an American, we know exactly what would have happened. You would have blamed everybody else and said that, oh, the numbers were just off and it'll still happen, and he'd come up with a totally other alternate date and just claim he was still right.
And or murder-suicide.
I just like to hear that somebody actually took responsibility for getting one wrong.
I am so utterly confused right now that the only thing that makes me think that I have sanity is the fact that I can taste copper. I don't even know what's happening anymore.
Let me bring it home for you.
Okay.
There are quite a few more UFO cults and bizarre beliefs around them, a whole weird industry of sorts.
Oh my God!
Including an online course in ufology from something called the Center for Excellence that costs a very precisely priced $157.92.
Can I? I'm super sorry. I don't mean to interrupt the flow, but ufology.
That's a real study. Ufology, and then it takes 150 hours to complete, and you get a downloadable certificate at the end. Don't think I wasn't tempted. But here's the thing. Did you guys ever watch Carl Sagan's groundbreaking TV series Cosmos, the original?
I never did. I wish that I had.
I believe that I have, but I don't no longer.
You were pretty
understand
young,
what reality is. So I did watch it.
Doug is standing in a trailer in northern Arizona, nervously tapping his fingers together.
That's right.
It's so good. In episode 12, Sagan very clearly laid out some estimates for the possibility of other intelligent life in our galaxy using something called the Drake equation. I could explain it all here, but it's actually fairly simple in its complexity, but it's far more informative just to watch the video of it, which I'll include in the show notes. He's just a bit better at explaining sciences and the maths than I am. So.
Does it involve a 3 a.m. call?
Does it involve what?
That's never mind. It's a joke about Drake the rapper that
you're having a hard time, Doug.
You guys are too old to understand.
Yeah, that's true.
You're having a hard time. So, adding up all the variables, he makes a pretty fucking compelling case that we are far from alone, potentially millions of technologically advanced civilizations in our galaxy.
Right.
That's a fucking lot. But the more obvious problem for ufologists and UFO cultists is the distances these other beings would need to cover to get to us, right? Most of the cults and loonies like David Icke have carve-outs for some kind of interdimensional travel and vibrating across dimensions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But as Sagan intimates in his episode, maybe their evolution didn't include several epochal misdirects on the way to creating their big brains like ours did, right? Potentially giving them a multi-million year head start on us, making it somewhat within the realm of possibility they've been flying around for thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of years already.
Totally.
While Sagan was
Or trillions. What about trillions of years?
It could have been zillions of trillions. Maybe they have super duper missiles. While Sagan was quite the optimist about their existence and our happy commingling with them, another gigantic brain on all things cosmic, Stephen Hawking, was very much not. He concluded that a very likely motivating factor for alien beings going to the great trouble and expense of interstellar travel might be resource exhaustion and environmental collapse at home, so they could be nomads looking to take our shit, like pretty much every science fiction movie ever, especially directed by Roland Emmerich. On July 24th of this year, the Washington Post published an article that might give Hawking a little heartburn were he alive today. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It seems the fabled old secret government UFO project Blue Book of the 50s and 60s didn't really go away. The program called, that still exists kind of, it's called the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, or UAPFT, or UAPFT
NAMBLA.
for short. NAMBLA released some videos that are pretty startling, showing foreshore weird objects moving at pretty fucking staggering speeds and behaving in odd ways. Louis Elizondo, the former director of UAPTF, and Eric W. Davis, an astrophysicist who worked with UAPTF, both claim they have fragments of metal and, quote, off-world vehicles that they, quote, we could not have made ourselves. But don't worry, this is all overseen by the steady hand and thirsty brain of Florida's online Bible bot and chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Marco Rubio.
Oh, good. Good. We're in good hands.
Please, people of Georgia, elect Warnock and Ossoff in a couple weeks, please.
Right.
You know that Rubio, it definitely seems like an alien with the lips and everything.
And the thirst, the dehydration
The
problems.
thirst.
He's got the thirst. So while the UFO cultists are weird and ridiculous, based on Carl Sagan and the Drake equation, and if the very fine people at the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, or UAPTF, are to be believed, there is a lot more probability and proof of alien life, and maybe even the potential for alien familiarity with our fair planet, than any other religious claim I can think of. So maybe the UF people are crazy. Crazy like a fox.
That's right.
Fox
An
Mulder,
alien
that is.
fox from
Got a little pop culture in at the end for you. So that's UFOs and UFO religion and cults, guys.
Venus. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's...
Well, I definitely
away.
feel like the tinfoil hat over my head is like the tinfoil cover over a popcorn. Microwave popcorn. Because I am...
why don't you adjust the tightness on that, and we'll move on
Let's
to our
move
next
on.
thing.
Bye.